clear. That's good. Hopefully, the rodeo has started. Has the rodeo started? The rodeo started. Okay. And
You're showing your terminal.
that does look like, I have to give it a moment because I'm delayed. Oh, no, you're right. OBS, once again. The classic trapping. The classic OBS blunder. Computers, man, how do they work?
No one knows.
No, nobody does. All right. I exist, therefore, what is it? I think, therefore I am. All right, I see, therefore it is. Bam, bam, bam. Nothing but technical blunders everywhere. All right, sorry for the delay there. I was running late, as one does. So today is, I believe, the 26th. We're on week 11 of CSE598. Right now it says multi-host exploitation because this kind of module has evolved conceptually over time as far as what it is that we're actually going to talk about. I left the schedule, which is somewhere in these slides, the same as it was, but we're gonna kind of limit our scope a bit here, as we'll see. So, memes. We just finished Windows. We didn't do anything crazy in Windows, but there was some pain in Windows, right? Particularly when it came to understanding kind of the calling convention, getting familiar with the tooling, and all of that jazz. This is not any related to this class. I don't think it's even related to ASU, but I appreciate a good meme in general. You guys dealt with toddler sis at the beginning of this class. Some poor soul on the internet is also independently trying to tackle toddler sis and clearly is enjoying the experience, right? Which I got a kick out of. Memes. Somebody else said, hey, you got any more of those challenges? And that's totally fair. At the end of office hours last week, I said, hey, I got some more Windows stuff. I'm just gonna do this quick change to the infra and it's all gonna be better, I promise. And yeah, all right. I don't know if you've ever worked on a project before, but sometimes you don't estimate correctly. And that is what happened here. I do have a response to this in some future slides here. Other memes, which this is good. This is what you should be looking forward to, right? The quarterly quiz launches on April 1st. The quarterly quiz does exist. The quarterly quiz is not going to be like the last module with Windows. The quarterly quiz is not going to be like this current module, where it is, we're trying something new, it may catch fire, and we're gonna just kind of roll with it and see what we have going on here, right? The quarterly quiz is a real module that has real challenges that, not that these ones don't have real challenges, but is meant to be difficult and is getting built independent of everything that I'm doing right now, right? And so this is what you should be looking forward to as far as a difficult thing, where everything we're doing right now is not meant to be insanely difficult. So quarterly quiz is gonna be some good stuff. Okay, so originally we called this thing persistence in botnets, right? And that's because we've kind of played around with this concept a few different ways, and this module has gone through several iterations. It actually originally was planned for last year, around springtime in CSE598, but it didn't make the cut. We didn't quite have things where we wanted, and so it kind of lamented. And so now we're going to take a stab at it, but instead of persistence in botnets, I'm just calling it multi-host exploitation, because that's kind of the concept that we're exploring here. Not necessarily persistence, because or botnets, right? So I'm actually doing neither of these things. And the reason for that is to have something called persistence in botnets means I'd have to talk about like APTs or command and control systems, or like, there's a lot going on there. Similarly, if I wanted to talk about botnets, I'd have to, again, do some type of command and control system, and we'd have to have all of these hosts, and I would have to have you deploy the botnets in some fashion, right? And so there's a lot of logistics there, and to be honest, each of those topics could be their own module independently. So instead, we're just going to focus on exploiting multiple hosts, right? Which the simplest case of that is a worm, okay? And so we're still going to be using the same underlying experimental infrastructure that would support these concepts, but we're not going to go crazy deep because we've only got like a week to touch it, right? So that's the idea. Grades. Last week, I still have my super tiny font. Windows was right here. So it's this long tail guy. This week, it moved up quite a bit. It turns out when you assign a due date to something, students do it, right? Imagine that. I don't blame you for sitting in this state, and I'm happy to see that we did manage to get to this state. So thank you for that, everyone. Grade average, we were somewhere around an 80. Now we're somewhere around a 90 for the class. I didn't recompute the raw number. This is still including outliers. So that means that the average student is still well into an A as far as the student that is doing the content. And this isn't particularly interesting. I thought when we looked at Windows, which is this guy right here, we'd see another like late bump from students doing it, but it really wasn't that bad, right? Like it got assigned somewhere around here, and so you see whoop, and then just a little bit at the end. Not anything crazy. Logistical things. So I did say I was going to like fix Windows stuff, and unfortunately I spent way too long doing Windows stuff. That's on me, not you, right? Like one of the bugs in the current Windows stuff is that you don't see waiting ready to receive shellcode, but it prints it, right? I know what that is. I have the fix. There's a PR. I haven't merged it because I didn't want to inadvertently break your challenges while they were assigned. But now that they're past the due date, you'll see me merging some changes there as well as rebuild some challenges. That will also make the dev loop hopefully much quicker for future iterations of the Windows material. And I mentioned that there were challenges. These challenges do exist, but I had to have this PR merged for those challenges to work. And so it just kind of was all at a standstill. I'm going to add these stack-related Windows challenges to the module. They are not assigned, right? I'll set the challenge limit to be 7 or whatever it was that was in there. And they are there if you want to poke at them and try them. And if you don't, that's fine, right? It'll be assigned for whoever else decides to visit the Windows content. So there will be stuff added to the Windows, won't impact your grade. Check them out if you're interested. One of the things that I mentioned on the topic of Windows is there is a GitHub issue. I'm going to keep saying this. I want somebody else to fix some of these things, especially once I merge this PR. Like that would just make my day. Is that the issue? If you go on, yes. If you go on here, I have a list of things that I am aware of that could be improved. And these aren't, I don't think, major time sinks. If you manage to do any of these things, fix any of these things on the Dojo infrastructure, because it's all open source, right? I will give you some extra credit in the course, like course extra credit. Be like, I don't know, 2%, 3%, whatever you think's fair. We'll fight about it. And I would greatly appreciate it as well. Once I merge this PR in, your dev loop for working on these things should shrink down to like 10 minutes. Did you manage to use my PR and get the rebuild time to shrink?
The problem I'm running into with post install. Like if I schedule a task, it shows it's scheduled, but if I log in and boot up the VM, it's not there. But if I do it in the startup, or not the startup, the setup, it works fine. I don't get why.
All right. So that, in my understanding, is that would depend upon who you're scheduling it as, right? Because like the default scheduling stuff in the startup is running stuff as system, and some things do need to run as system, but you should be able to schedule a task to run as hacker or whatever as hacker. At least I would think so. Okay. But the default copy pasta for how things are scheduled tries to schedule things as system, and you only can be system at startup, where in post install you're running as hacker user with administrator privileges, not necessarily system. I think that would be the issue. If you have details, shoot them to me, and in my infinite time, I will look into it, right? So again, if you manage to fix any of those things and improve the content for everyone, I will bribe you with extra credit. All right. What we're doing today, though, is multi-host exploitation, right? Which will launch this evening, right? This continues the kind of back half of experimental modules that are running. If things catch fire, don't worry. If challenges don't work, don't worry. Just let me know. We'll deal with it. You're not going to get punished for the infrastructure not behaving how I expect, right? And then just a general reminder, the drop deadline is in like 5 days. I don't think anyone here needs to, but it is always worth mentioning. Okay, demo plans. I'm gonna give you a brief history as far as like the challenge inspiration. What are we doing and why are we doing it? And then I'm going to demo kind of how these challenges work, because these are going to work a little bit different than what you've seen already, okay? Any questions thus far? No. All right. So this is not a, whoop. Let's make that not be long. Okay. So this is not one of the challenges because they aren't posted. But what I have done is I've replaced the challenge directory with what you would see on these challenges. So what you'll have on these challenges is you will have a run file. You'll have some number of folders that represent the hosts that are part of this challenge. All right. Now, these hosts are a type of host, not necessarily a distinct host. Does everyone know what I mean when I say host? Right? It's a different computer. Now, one of the problems here on the old dojo is how do I have a whole bunch of different computers? And this is where the technical insanity begins. That's why we have run. If let's start with tmux, do challenge run, it's going to think for a minute, and then it's going to blurt out some stuff that I'm going to hide before I deploy this, because this is the output from the individual challenges, which there's really no need for you to see this, but it's fine for demonstration purposes. So we saw two things. Welcome to BabyBot level 1 TTT, and then welcome to BabyBot level 1 flag host, right? And it says here that I am now root on host 2. I'm going to, because I had this and then I deleted my changes because I'm awesome like that, I'm going to improve this output here so it's a little bit more clear. But we have 3 hosts on this challenge, named host 2, host 0, and host 1. The additional thing that will be output is which host is connected to which host. If I right now were to go IP address, we see I am host 2, and I should be on 10.0.0.1, right? And that is what we see right here. So what I've done is I've dropped into host 2. Now host 2 has my normal hacker system here, right? Now what this doesn't show you is which host can talk to which host. Because I can ping 10.0.0.2, and that works. I cannot ping 10.0.0.3. So there is an actual network here and chain of hosts involved. And that is what I'm going to improve the help text up here to show you which host is connected to which host. Now there is, we said, this BabyBot tic-tac-toe, which is what TTT stands for. It's a tic-tac-toe game. Tic-tac-toe is a service, all right? And then we have flag host. Now I am on 10.003, and there should be a flag. But even though I'm root, I can't access it. There's only one host that can access the flag that is at /flag. It's going to be for this example, it is the third one in this chain. Okay, does that make sense so far? Cool. Now, our first host here has cool things like Python, right? It has everything that you would expect from the normal Dojo environment. The later hosts do not. They have some things, but not all things. So we said we can interact with 10.002. So let's do that. Right now, everything is set up so that it will be on 1337. I may or may not change that by the time this gets deployed later this evening. Bam. We get a nice, friendly interface, right? We dealt with kind of this networking stuff in Windows, right? Where we had the Linux box that was going to use a remote in Python to connect to that Windows service. You can still use Python and do that same type of coding here to interact with this. This is just some service that's talking on a port, right? The fact I'm using netcat is not important. What is my name? My name is Robert, and I get to play tic-tac-toe. It literally is what it says on the can here, okay? Now, we all know that 1-1, taking the center square, is always the best move. And yes, you get to play against an automated opponent here for tic-tac-toe. So let's see if I can win this match. The problem is I don't know rows and columns. So it's zero-based indexing here. Zero, I think I want 0-1. No, turns out I want 0-1. I want 2-0-2. Is that what I want? No. Okay. Well, if that is 0-2, then now I want 2-0. Okay, I won. All right, we did it. Right, like for whatever reason, I can't brain that, right? And I wrote this challenge, right? For whatever reason, I can't figure it out. And we see player 1 wins, and it gives me the score of me and then the player. And it tells us that we need to win 1 million consecutive games in order to access this host.
All right, let's get grinded.
Okay. Now, it will actually do that, okay, if you manage to win 1 million games, right? So you could, if you were so inspired, write the world's greatest tic-tac-toe, computer, and it will drop into a shell at that point, because this is one of the early, easy kind of intro challenges, okay?
What if we lose?
If you lose one game, any one game, you don't get a shell.
All right, because it's consecutive.
It says consecutive, and this is where you could reverse this and see what the actual logic is. The logic is if you lose any match, you just automatic enter a failing state where you can still play, but you'll never get a shell. So you must literally win 1 million matches from the beginning straight through.
I guess you could just disconnect and reconnect, right? Theoretically?
Yeah, you could disconnect and reconnect, but that's going to reset your counter.
Yes.
Right? And winning 1 million matches might take a little while. And so this is our program, right? Now, this class isn't about writing how to solve a tic-tac-toe game, right? And I'm not going to spoil this particular challenge, but there is some vulnerability. It's not meant to be particularly devious, right? In this binary. So there's something you can take advantage of so that you don't literally have to play 1 million games.
I assume there's a binary in like one of those 2 folders that we can reverse.
Right, so that's the next good logical question is, well, how the heck do I figure this out, right? And yes, that is where those folders come into play. So this is a tic-tac-toe game, right? So it is this tic-tac-toe host that represents what is on that host. And so if we look at TTT host, we see babybot level 1, TTT. This is the binary that's running, so that you can reverse it. You'll also see BusyBox. BusyBox isn't important from a exploitation standpoint. It's how I'm generating these file systems that have nothing on them. Is everyone familiar with BusyBox? Somewhat? BusyBox? Maybe. Okay. It's super easy. So BusyBox is actually super cool binary. It's a single binary that is statically built that gives you all of these commands. Right? And so like if I wanted to run, is ls in here? Okay, sure. If I wanted to run sh, I want to get a shell. I can run busybox sh, and now I'm in a shell that is created by this busybox binary. Okay, this is like a minor implementation detail. And so all of these commands exist through busybox. So why is busybox there? Because I said that these later hosts have a minimal file system. BusyBox has the ability to install symlinks at all of the locations that you would expect these to exist that then reference back to a single BusyBox binary. So when I say these later hosts have nothing, this is literally all that's on the host. You don't get access to Home Hacker. You'll notice that Python is not listed here. So you don't have Python on these remote hosts.
We get Vim and Netcat.
What do we got here? Yes, the only winning move is to play. The only way to win is to play tic-tac-toe. Exactly. Only winning move is to drop the class. I think we're far enough along to where that shouldn't be a concern. Was I always this loud? Hopefully. Okay, so that was an implementation detail. We want to look at that tic-tac-toe thing. We can still use what we're familiar with. If we go to good old pwn.college, no, not win. We're done. We're done with Windows. The great password manager test. Oh, we succeeded. Cool. So we could still open up these binaries and take a look at them. Now, some of them, I don't know if this one is one of them, to be honest. Oh, IDA is taking its time here. It doesn't know anything. Bam, bam. Woo. Some of them are statically compiled. I wonder if this one is. Challenge. It is. It's statically linked. What does statically linked mean? Anyone? Yeah, you gotta know this.
You just compile everything in one binary, so you don't need the library share level.
Right. So the response was that the libraries get compiled into the binary, so that way it doesn't need to reach out and find libc. Do you know why that might be necessary? Because these hosts have nothing on them. So that means that there may not even be libc in some cases. So just in order to have these things run in this environment has that requirement. Cool. So does everyone kind of understand what's happening from a design standpoint here? Question.
Why do we have so many hosts?
Why do we have so many hosts?
Yeah, like we have one binary. Like, what's the difference between what makes this module special with others? Like, I'm guessing the exploitation method has to do with like messing with different hosts.
So the underlying exploits, right? I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but if we were to look up, I guess I'm not going to steal this whole thunder here, but what is a worm? Do you know what a worm is? What's a computer worm?
Like some attack that goes hack multiple computers.
Okay, it's an attack that attacks multiple computers. What makes a worm different than what we have done in this entire course?
Replicates itself?
Okay, it replicates itself. Right? Now, one of the very first worms, which later challenges here, I'm not going to spoil it, are inspired by this worm, by the Morris worm. Okay, the Morris worm is a very famous worm from, I want to say, 88. Yes, November 2nd of 88. And the Morris worms aren't necessarily malicious. Okay, being a worm doesn't mean that it's going to steal your credentials. It doesn't mean it's going to encrypt your file system and bribe you for crypto or anything like that. A worm implies two things, my understanding, and maybe Adam can correct me. But good, he's asking that question. So a virus is hooked into a particular program, right? So when I start up the program, this malicious code runs. A worm runs independent of the program. It is its own ephemeral process, right? And so if I were to, for instance, exploit this guy right here, right? We're in our tic-tac-toe game. I want to move from this host to the next one. Now, I could pop a shell, and I could write a new exploit here and go target the next thing. But the next thing may not be a tic-tac-toe game. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. If it is, what I need is my exploit to go and take over this and then launch against the next host. And then launch against the next host. Now, this is a simple example that I'm showing you where there's two hosts or three hosts. There's the host I'm on, there's this tic-tac-toe game, and then there's something behind that. Later challenges are going to have can I use this whiteboard? Let's find out. A setup that is more of a hub and spoke model. So this is where you start. And then maybe there's a host over here. Maybe there's a host over here. Maybe there's a host over here. Maybe this one goes to here. And maybe this goes over here. And each of them may be running one of the services that are shown in /challenge. So maybe we said this one is where we start, so this one has our home, right? Maybe this is a tic-tac-toe game. Maybe this is a patched tic-tac-toe game. Maybe this is a tic-tac-toe game. Where's the flag?
Somewhere.
It's on one of these.
Gotta figure that out.
Okay, so there's kind of two ways that you can approach this, right? You could start here, pop a shell. Now you don't have Python, but you have a shell. I'm going to use that shell to then, by hand, go and exploit this, and then pop a shell, maybe. And then I'm going to, now I have a shell here, and so now I need to figure out what's around here, and then go and manually exploit this, right? And you could do that, but that's going to get a bit time consuming, right? And in the end, there is a limited number of services that are going to be running in any challenge, right? There may be 5 hosts or 10 hosts, but these hosts are going to be running, each one of them will be running one of, say, 3 services. So your exploit logic is now to remotely go in, somehow gain control flow, identify hosts that are nearby, figure out what service is running, exploit that, and repeat. That would be a worm, wouldn't it? Now, that is what makes this module different. And I'm not going to tell you which host has the flag in this type of a scenario, right? And I can make this, I'm not going to go like too insane just because this is all experimental infra, right? But there's nothing stopping me from just making this arbitrarily deep to where the flag is 1 hop, 2 hops, 3 hops, 4 hops, 5 hops away. And you don't necessarily know it's 5 hops deep on your third option, right? Assuming that this gets implemented correctly at deployment, this will get randomized at challenge start, which means you start the challenge, maybe the flag in the network is set up like this and the flag is over here. You restart the challenge, I'm gonna regenerate the layout of the network So you can't be like, oh, I'm going to go from 10.001 to 10.002 to 10.005, 5 to 10.007. You can't do that. Because every time you run and hop into that virtual environment, we're going to reconfigure what's going on here. So your exploit, if you gain control flow, isn't that hard to scan a network? Is it? Maybe you have Nmap, maybe you don't. I don't know, we'll find out tonight when I launch this, right? But you can certainly write a Python script, or you could run ping and see if a host is up. Now, one of the things that is worth noting is this is a giant IP space. I am not going to make you scan that entire IP space, right? I will keep everything to the lowest quartet, is that the word? Octet. The lowest octet here. So everything will be within between 10.001 and 10.00254. Okay? So because it's not meant to be a brute forcing exercise, but it is supposed to be something that your logic needs to deal with. Okay? Now the underlying exploits that are in each of these binaries is something you've seen before. Okay? But they're not going to tell you. Did the tic-tac-toe game tell you how to exploit it? No. And there's multiple versions of these services that have different exploits. So just because it's a tic-tac-toe game doesn't mean it's exploit A. It could be a tic-tac-toe game that is patched for exploit A, and you need to use exploit B on it. And you need to write your code that starts here, that tackles it, identifies host, identifies the service, and navigates the network. Does that make sense? Does that seem reasonably different from what we've done thus far?
Yeah, that makes sense. So,
Right.
quick question. So if we have, like, for example, so if we have an exploit,
Mhm.
it works, and then we restart the challenge, will it spawn again, or do I have to, like, change it?
So the question is, if I have an exploit that works and I restart the challenge, will the exploit work? And the question is, well, it depends on what you did, right? If we look at the challenge directory here, we have two types of hosts, right? What I can say is for this challenge, every host that is started up as a TTT host, as defined right here, will be vulnerable to the same thing, right? What is not guaranteed is that the first host you encounter is a TTT host, right? It could be, it doesn't make sense in this context, but say, imagine that I had some other hosts, right? Chal1 host and Chal2 host. This first thing that you encounter could be a Chal1 host, at which point, deploying the exploit for a TTT host wouldn't work on that, would it? Because you have to identify what kind of host is it that you're interacting with.
Oh, it's like add if statements, basically.
Right? What's that?
So add if statements.
Yeah, like the technical difficulty of identifying the host at a high level is what did the challenge say, right? Did it say, welcome to tic-tac-toe host? Okay, it's a tic-tac-toe host. You now know this, right? But your exploit still has to go through that part of enumerating it, right? Now, there's nothing stopping me, because I mentioned that there may be a patched tic-tac-toe host, right? There's nothing stopping me from doing something like, well, I need to not be there. Sudo, let's make this be, okay. Sudo make dir challenge TTT host 2. There's nothing stopping me from having an environment like this, where these are two different types of hosts, but both of them may present the same initial messaging to you. At which point okay, I get the first line of text from it, haha, I know what it is. Yeah, you know it's one of these two, but I promise you that the exploitation vector, like the vulnerability in both of these, is going to be different. And so you may be able to reduce it. I know it's not a flag host. I know it's one of these two. But then you're going to have to do some type of enumeration in your worm to be like, okay, well, which vulnerability works on this particular iteration of that service? Does that answer your question? Cool. Somebody says, this module sounds annoying and you will not do it. Well, that sounds like a you problem, right? That is not a me problem. At the end of the day, what are you doing, right? Every challenge consists of some fixed number of binaries, right? So write an exploit for each one of these binaries, right? At a high level, how do we solve this, right? So I find an exploit for each one of the binaries that are listed there. I then figure out how I want to enumerate this, right? So how do I detect which type of service is it? I write an if statement. If statements are hard, I understand that, Twitch, right? We write some type of detection logic to determine what the service is. We then deploy our exploit. We then enumerate our network to see what is available and repeat. Somewhere along the lines there, you try and cat the flag and see if your particular host is the one with the flag. Like, I think it would be pretty cheeky if I didn't put the flag at the end, and I put the flag, like, here. right? I don't know if you can see it, Twitch, but there's like a chain of 5 hosts, and the flag is accessible on like host 3 of a 5-host chain, right? Because you can't. I think that would be kind of fun, because then if you just tried to enumerate all the way to the end, and you're like, oh, it's got to be here. Wrong, right? But the underlying exploits in these are not super crazy, right? Particularly the earlier ones. Now, a couple of the services, I don't want to say like they're hard to find. They shouldn't be hard to find the exploit. Let me put it that way, okay? If you're spending a lot of time looking at one of these binaries and being like, I don't know where the vulnerability is, then something's wrong, right? Like either I messed up, or like that shouldn't be where you spend your time. So your time should be spent developing the exploit when you already know what it is, right? So these are going to be things that hopefully have a familiar pattern to stuff that you've seen in earlier challenges, right? So what type of things are fair game? Buffer overflows, shellcode, ROP, format strings, heap, right? All of those, you should be able to identify, hey, we see something is being passed, we have control of the first argument of printf. This is a format string exploit, right? It shouldn't be insane in that capacity, right? The hard part should be in chaining these exploits and kind of pivoting around. There's not going to be 20 challenges. There's going to be like 5 or 6. Like I have 5 planned, I might add a 6th. But as you see, each one of them consists of multiple binaries. Now, just because TTT host 1 is here, you may see TT host 1 again in the next level, right? And so what you should be doing is taking your existing exploit that does X, right? And then build it up so now it handles this other case, right? So like the first scenario, which I think is what I loaded up here as an example, is we connected to a host, and this second thing is a flag host. You want to guess what the flag host does?
Have a flag and maybe print it.
Like, see if I can type today. Okay, so that's running. This is now running locally.
Oh, so in practice mode, we can just like run these little leads.
So the binaries are still just binaries,
Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
And so yeah, you can, if you want to like debug this, I want to attach GDB to it. Don't go into run and get into that, like things will not work how you expect, right? You can run the challenge locally. So right now, you'll see that I am just on the normal Dojo environment. I can just run this binary, right? And this is in my outside of host 0, host 1, host 2, right? And we can tell that based upon the prompt here. But I can look at, that was real hard, right? Like we aren't starting off with anything like mind-blowingly hard here, where this service is literally just giving you the flag, right? Now, not every service will just end in that state. It may end in some service that you need then to get control flow to then obtain the flag. But you can totally debug these, right? So like our TTT host here, there's nothing stopping me from using our trusted tool that we know and love, GDB, right? And just connecting to it. There was a child process, right? So follow fork mode, child. Okay, and now we're inside there, right? We're at that read where it's trying to read the name. And so you can totally still use everything that you know. This isn't a complete change-up. What is different is that when you want to actually deploy these to get the flag, you have to start from this environment right here. Now, cool. Let me see, did I miss anything from Twitch? Adam asks, when is this launching? pwn.college is going down for maintenance sometime tonight. Perfect. This will launch sometime in the next 24 hours. It will be due on Monday. Monday is when the quarterly quiz launches, as you've noticed, both due to my procrastination and just the general alignment of the second half here. We've switched from this kind of early Friday thing to we launch here with class, we see what happens, and it's due in a week and we roll, okay? If there are crazy technical issues, I think I've been pretty fair with everyone, right? Like you don't feel like I'm being mean to you, right? We'll deal with it, we'll adapt as necessary, okay? Whether that means we move the due date, we change where the bar is, whatever. I just want you to play around with this concept and see how it goes.
How many challenges are there?
The question was, how many challenges are there? So right now I have 5. I may add a like 6th or 7th, but it'll definitely be under 10, right?
Are there videos?
Are there videos? What do you want a video on?
I don't want
I made slides for a video, right? But it's not technical in nature, right? Because like, what would I be showing you? I'd be showing you how to exploit a format string. I'd be showing you how to pop a shell, right? It's funny because like I've spent however many years now at pwn.college telling people, don't pop a shell, right? Like just get the flag. And this is the first module where I'm like, yeah, maybe it does make sense to pop a shell, right? Because I could pop a shell, I could launch some other process that just sits there on this host and acts as an intermediary for me to communicate from host to host, right? Or I could pop a shell and use that as kind of a staging ground to launch my next attack, right? It can make a lot of sense to do that. So I have slides for a video, but the video is almost entirely historical in nature. It is not here's a whole bunch of like code to tackle this, right? I would probably give a similar rant about how the infra works. But like, I assume you understand how networking works. Yes? I assume you understand the basics of exploiting stuff that we've talked about in the class. Right? And I assume you know how to write an if statement. Like the rest of it is totally free form, right? So like I've talked with some people about the kind of challenge design. They're like, well, how could they enumerate the network? Someone said, well, they could use nmap. Like, yeah, all right, if nmap's there, you could do that. But what if you don't have nmap? Well, you could run some Python script to enumerate stuff. Well, what if you don't have Python? Well, you could compile a C binary that's going to have a for loop, and it's just going to try and connect. Well, how do I get that binary over to the host? Well, hopefully you have control, so you have a shell, which means that you could like netcat L and cat stuff in, right? You could do that. It's entirely up to you to like carve this monstrosity together for how you want to deal with that problem. And I think if I, especially having experience showing what I feel is too much code in like the microarch module, where everyone shows me my own code and they're like, why doesn't this work? I think it is way more fun for everyone to find their own approach there. Like, okay, you don't have Python. How could you solve that? What if you really just want to run Python on the host? What do you do?
Copy Python over.
Okay, let's move Python. Let's move Python onto that host and run Python, right? Now maybe there's a library issue and Python doesn't run. What do? You can copy the library over, right? Now that's a bit more heavy-handed than what I would, personally think of doing. But I like the idea of this being open to your interpretation of how to tackle these sub-problems. Is that fair?
So it's basically like a mix of different concepts.
Yeah, it's a mix of concepts. It's about the application kind of blending these together.
Right. The difficulty isn't supposed to come from like individual exploits. It's from like doing the recon,
Yeah,
figuring out.
right.
how to
The difficulty of these modules should be doing the recon, writing the detection logic, right, and then moving, like enumerating your hosts and moving through these points. That's where the difficulty is.
Yes, it's kind of like toddler levels in a way.
Kind of, but like in a toddler level, like I thought about that. Like I spent a decent amount of time thinking about how technically difficult should these exploits be. I did not make them what I would call toddler difficulty. There is one that is, I think, fun to exploit, but you'll immediately know what to do. It's just a matter of doing it. But hopefully. Okay. Where am I time-wise? We're 1 minute. Let me double check the old Twitch. Somebody says, can I put a note on the website about the infra? I will not, because I am not the one taking the dojo down. Nor have I been the one that has been taking the dojo down. So whoever's in charge of that probably will. Okay. Any last-minute questions about what we're navigating?
Yes.
Yes.
Is like based on that diagram, is the network path between hosts fixed?
The question
So like
is,
are we expected to travel through those paths, basically?
is the paths between the hosts fixed?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on the word fixed?
Like I guess are we like expected to create new path from the start?
Are you expected to create all the paths between hosts exists when you hit run? Okay, so that gets generated. We generate this whole like network layout when you do challenge/run. Okay, like you can see it. It's in Python. It's crazy magic code. Would be the. Oh, I'm not on there. I started late. I'll run late unless somebody kicks me out. Like you can look at this code and what it does and how it works. The problem is that it's a whole bunch of namespace stuff. If you remember 466, where we had namespacing as a containerization layer, right? We had the namespace and challenges at the end of Baby Jail. It is using namespaces, like network namespaces and file system namespaces, to create the illusion of these hosts, all right? And this is what we're in for level 1. So you can see, what did we do? We made a challenge host. BB is for BusyBox. So it's bare bones BusyBox host. It is mounting into, it's starting that binary, BabyBot TTT. That is the service that's running. And then this is the path that is getting loaded into that host, right? That's why we have like /challenge TTT host. Everything that's in /challenge TTT host is in the host that is represented by that object, right? Then we have a BB flag host. BB flag host doesn't have to run the flag host binary. A BB flag host is just a bare bones BusyBox host that has access to the flag, right? So if you want to try and like metagame this, you can look and see what we're doing. Like, I'm not hiding this from you. The difference is that in the deployment version, there's going to be source rand, right? And then it's going to like randomize IPs, and it's going to say, hey, well, maybe you get this layout this time, and then you exit and run, and maybe you get a different layout next time. I won't necessarily do that to all of the challenges, but conceptually, that is what you should expect, because the goal isn't for you to hard code, oh, I go to 10.002, oh, I go to 10.007, oh, then I go to 10.009, And I know that the services running are a TTT. This one has a format string vulnerability. This one has a heap vulnerability. This one has, and I can just write this as a linear thing. If you can solve at least the later challenges by just having some linear flow of hard-coded IPs and hard-coded services, then I have failed from a challenge design standpoint. That is how I would view that. Right? Now the earlier ones, yeah, all right, maybe I'll let you get away with that, right? That's fair. But the end goal is certainly for that not to be the case at the later stages. Does that answer your fixed question?
Yep.
Cool. But the nice thing is you'll be able to see like what I'm doing here to punk you. All right, and I will improve the I mentioned it, the output here from challenge run, because right now it just says the IPs, but it doesn't say what's connected. Right here you can see what hosts are connected to what, but I'll make that print out at challenge run in some pretty format. I had that, and then my dev challenge instance expired from the 6-hour time limit as I was working on it. And so I lost my version of run that had this like nice pretty output, and so I got to rewrite that. But yeah, cool. Somebody says this is cool. Cool. I'm glad you think it's cool. Cool. All right. Any other last questions? Nothing. Beautiful. Twitch, it was a good time. The dojo will probably be on fire, it sounds like. That's fine. That gives me an excuse to clean this up a little bit more. And we'll see how it goes. With that, I'll leave y'all, and I will see you on Friday? Oh, Friday. Friday, I will not be here in person. I will stream.
Okay.
All right, I will stream. And if everything is just like on fire and you hate this and this just doesn't work and you're like, oh my God, this is such a grind, why did you do this? Just DM me, tell me, we'll figure it out, guys. All right? But I think it's going to be kind of an interesting set of sub-problems, right? And then the big scary thing is the quarterly quiz, which that is something that is going to be like challenging and daunting, and I don't know if you'll solve all of it, to be honest. So that'll be fun for next week, Monday. This is meant to, multi-host exploration is meant to be a fun thing, not like an impossibly difficult thing. All right. With that, I'll leave everyone. I think Adam's holding office hours tomorrow.
Yes.
So keep that in mind. With that, I'll leave you. Goodbye and good luck.